where we are not instilling yesterday's knowledge, but to create spaces in which tomorrow's problem become visible. And also, so maybe this is a parallel quote. It's also critical that our terms are plural. Our work must not be about replicating one dominant economic paradigm, supposedly better than the last. It could instead be about cultivating the space for many different concepts of value to interface with one another in creative ways which don't aim for cancerous growth but are self-sustaining, responsible, and resilient. So with these two observations, we will find our initial experiments and research. So what we found was like collective intelligence, neighborhood cooperation, and trust played a huge role in the success of those NUCs. Each person who participated understood their interdependence with everyone else. They shared a mutual understanding. And also we saw social synergy arises when we work together on a common mission. Communities become more cohesive when we make visible the opportunities to connect, collaborate, and share resources. It was never about any transactional value. Means we have been doing this for last 3 years and it has been never about transactional values. So all this thing led us to question, are these NUCs becoming subgraphs in a graph network, having its own identity in a graph network? What are those values which are keeping the micro network together? Are there any common values arising out of the communities that are bringing people together? So God is thinking maybe all of the problems we are facing in today's world are because of weak social modeling. Most economic models ignore basic human behavior such as friendship networks, affiliation networks, limits on cognitive resources, attention, or altruism. And we are realizing basically as we work in the project, the basic common factors between open source software and NUC community efforts are deeply interrelated. Shared values and reciprocity in our shared purpose plays a crucial role there. People are working on the project because of the intrinsic values. Many times it is purely altruism. Means I have been telling this over and over again. This project is not how we are like how we have imagined things till date. It is very different. I have seen like people working here out of motivation, out of intrinsic values, and out of pure altruism. They're giving their attention, they're giving their time, they're giving their resources, and which is very different than how the real world operates. We started wondering if there can be a model developed while keeping shared values and plurality concepts alive, what it might look like. So uh, I found a few resources on Nadia Iqbal's book on open source and building in public, which mentions the concept of modularity and granularity. So maybe shared purpose, if we might be thinking of a network built on shared purpose as a commons, and the subnetworks DAOs might become the modular granular part of the network. So as the contributors are members, they can see themselves as part of the community where the members know each other and are guided through shared values. There is a cohesion that gets developed among the members. Reciprocity might be many of the factors. And as Ostrom's law also says that decentralized platform might not mean that there is no boundary. So this membership boundary is already being there. Members are already aware of acceptable behavior from the community. So, and we also realized that through open source, we can also distribute it much better without scaling it. Scaling and distribution are two different things, totally different. So as members of the community might be interested in taking the modular branch ahead as per the need of the particular micro community. That way parents, educators, developers, and space collaborators are aware of the changes being made. Being open source, everyone is aware of the getting into the system. Their thoughts in developing the system might matter, and thus they might be able to change in a way the local community is aligned. Each member is in sync. Discussions and collaborations become a normal part of. As everyone is invested in keeping the project alive in their own way, they might be able to create contents, update the code, and support the network in their own individual way, thus self organizing along the shared value being created and distributing the software along the way. This way, community members might become active contributors even in the software aspect of the project. They might be able to operate independently from the project's active software contributor community but still play an active role in the project direction. So, also, we figured that attention of the commons is a value. So Nadia Iqbal also mentions in her book that the value of the common is derived from its members. Ostrom's guidelines on having clear group boundaries, shared values, purpose might make sense in these modular groups, graphs where they are setting their norms on how they put developers' attention to issues. Such a modular community network might require far fewer programmers to satisfy its needs because of attention and investment the programmers are giving with their time, as they themselves are part of the both wider community as well as the individual modular subgraph, which enables the ability to adapt existing programs for customization instead of starting from scratch. Better education of programmers, the elimination of duplicate development efforts. Lastly, uh, resonating with Henry's thoughts, if software is eating the world, I think there is much to be done with thinking about how we can work to make sure it is healthy. Healthy for both users, contributors, and maintainers alike, as there can be so much entitlement and complaining on all sides. And in spite of the negativity, the values of open source inspire me the same way my own faith community does, one that is serving versus just consuming, putting others above ourselves as opposed to selfish ambition, and lifting up rather than competing. So we have been exploring these questions, like, to design such a network, where do we start? How might we generate self-funding in each of the modular networks that are part of a bigger network? How that funding might look like? Can a circular economy be designed in each of these sub-networks where contributors are fairly honored with their needs? And with kernel, can we ask the same question? Can we create a culture where I am wealthy by virtue of what I care for rather than what I control? Where wealth means having enough to share because who you are is already enough? Can we create environments where what I hold is made valuable because of the community to which it binds me? And along with it, may we dare to ask ourselves the question, is the intentional connection between people and asset? Might we reconsider content generation in such a network? How do we measure such a value while we program values into a system? What are the various options? And in this model, how might we enable to open source developers to sustain themselves? So I am looking forward to your thoughts and questions, and maybe we can explore a few things together. Thank you for being here, and thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together, Tua. I also want to let you know that the conversation thread people are also discussing ideas as well. So if you can check in there and see. So I think one of the few questions is like, how do you scale without losing connection? I think you kind of mentioned that as well, which I think is a really interesting topic because when you scale, people always know that when you scale, the intimation, like the things that are intimate tends to like kind of falter apart. And I think that's like really interesting because like when you build community, like to me in my idea, what you have to break it into subgroups and
Mhm,
bring
mhm,
the locality focus into it. So for example,
mhm,
Gitcoin DAO is gigantic,
mhm,
but we have subgroups such as the library. We have like other
mhm,
work stream as well, right?
mhm,
So like a memes marketing merch. So it's like two entire like they everybody have like personal attention. Like for example, when I
mhm,
jump to this call, I know everybody in this call. Like we've seen everybody kind of attending, and it's just like familiar faces, right? And then there's
mhm,
like one single point of contact, and that
mhm,
contact also like for example me, I could also bring this information back into the Gitcoin DAO, so like we don't lose information. So I guess in a sense, like having a coordinator kind of person to have a high
mhm,
level overview, but also like
mhm,
having subgroups, which makes it like not like just like a big idea of scaling. So
mhm,
anyway,
mhm,
so that's my thought, but I
mhm.
love the idea of like how do we scale without losing connection. So would love people's thought on this as well.
Difference between distribution and scaling, and if distribution means something local, doing locally. In that case, we don't need to scale, but the supportive network is still there to support you when you are in it. Yeah.
Yeah, I also want to make sure that scaling is also not limited by physical proximity, but rather more even just like an online. So
Yeah.
it's as long as it's reachable and a group is like contained into a small group and
Mm-hmm.
always kind of return back, I
Mm-hmm.
would say that's the group. But I think Ben was gonna say something.
Mm-hmm.
No, I just had something like as like a neat fact add on in this area of thought is that or like I just saw this recent thing about the average number of internet accounts, like accounts and passwords that people have is 150, which is actually Dunbar's number, which is the maximum amount of relationships we can have outside of ourselves with people. And so it's crazy that we're reaching that internal breaking point of connection scale within ourselves to like different versions of ourselves. And so like if people don't know, Dunbar's number is 150. It's the maximum amount of relationships that you can like have any meaningful depth towards with and like understand more than just like like there's only a certain amount of like attention space and span that we have, so like that's kind of why there's this connections don't scale dichotomy. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting that it exists within ourselves as much as without ourselves. Like our relationships to our accounts is as spread thin as our relationship to like other like it's just there's I don't know how to like circle the square and end the thing, but there's some interesting thoughts. So
Mm-hmm. 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 This is, yeah.
I feel like there's and then one other thing that I just want to add here is that I feel like scale should not be understood as only just number go up. Like there are different ways to scale
Yes.
connections. You can have
Yes.
deeper as opposed to more breadth of
Mm-hmm.
connections. So like if there is a limit to the amount of connections we have, then there is a value in creating deeper connections with the connections that we already have. And so like could be a feature, not a bug, that connections
Yeah.
don't scale. So like we
Yeah.
just have more meaningful connections is
Ye-
just the logical answer
Yes.
for that.
That's it. Yes, that is a value, and that's, we can put it in a time frame, maybe that those deeper connections which are getting created in the. Thank you, Ben. Yeah. Yeah.
You could also call that horizontal and vertical scaling to
Mm-hmm.
bring it into kind of computer science a little bit.
I think Sarah also brought up a thesis in within the text. I was wondering if you can bring up Jonas Peretti's Splintering Identity and Capitalism thesis.
Yeah, this is, I feel a bit, this is like a, there's like recurring reference points you have, and Ben made me think of this. Um, so Jonah Peretti, the founder of BuzzFeed, wrote this undergraduate thesis that I basically read once a year. It's super interesting. It's all about, this is before Jonah fell into the BuzzFeed world when he was a Marxist. And he wrote this thesis about how capitalism, late stage capitalism, forces us into splintered identities because it has to sell things to us in more ways. And I feel like when Ben was talking about the internal Dunbar number struggle, I was just like, of course, like there's this disconnect internally, right? I think we feel disconnected often in communities we're in. I think the level of connection we're expected to have in life feels
Mm-hmm.
unrealistic often, right? Or at least unfulfilling in some ways. The rare exceptions like this particular group. But I'll put a link to it in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, what are some other questions that we can hit within like the slides?
Yes.
I'm kind of thinking, sorry to
Yeah.
not to cut
Go
you off,
ahead.
Go ahead. Go
a
ahead.
weird half-baked thought. I'm happy to share all my weird quasi thoughts. I think that there's because I'm just like reading the circular economy and I'm thinking about, is there the same thermodynamic like massive conservation of mass? Does that apply to information? I feel like not, because someone that teaches something gets as much out of teaching or can get as much out of teaching. Like it's not like there's a two-way exchange of value. Like the
Yes.
teacher gains something and the student gains something.
Yeah.
And so like there is a circular economy where it's like it can like power itself because it doesn't hold to the same like physical laws of like mass needs to conserve and like knowledge is transferred which like leaves the teacher's brain and then they like don't have that knowledge anymore. Like information works in a more pluralist, less physical like source of abundance, like as opposed to like zero sum, like my information takes away from your information.
Yes. Yes.
There's
Yes.
interesting ways to like facilitate feedback,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
flywheels that spin on their own. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you finished that thought,
Mm-hmm.
but it's neat.
What
To
oh,
You're okay.
yes. So no, you can go ahead.
I was gonna ask. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You're okay. I don't know who's going. I was just gonna ask if when you're building these communities from scratch, like I imagine that everybody has to be joined in values, but has there been points where you've failed to reach consensus? And if so, like how have you gone about those points where you failed to reach consensus within a small local community?
Okay. So, what we have seen in those communities means those are some live uh, community gatherings that we have done. Is like people come there in those communities because of some shared values and purpose, and then it's kind of children are playing open-endedly. So I won't describe much here that what an open-ended play might look like, and parents get to work and socialize. It's in their neighborhood, so they start coming regularly. Most of these parents are basically uh, those who are homeschooling, alternative schooling, or kind of co-op schooling their children, and they have not found value in how the education system is working uh, right now for all of us. And not sure what you mean by consensus here. They means we come together based on some shared values of our community, like we believe in open-ended play, and we want to work, we are from the same community, and then there is a referral thing which might bring you into the community, and we ask a set of uh, questions which make us um, basically we have a like a 1,000 member group, and till now, till last 4 years, we have been all of us are in sync, and it's a beauty to look at. And I think what is keeping us together and keeping this micro together is like those shared values on parenting and open-ended play, and on those micro communities we are being neighbors. And then a lot of other kind of, maybe we can say that those circular economies gets developed through those interactions which we have, because those are authentic and honest conversations which we are having in those communities. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but
No, I
yeah.
think you did. Like
Yeah.
everybody there discusses things a lot more openly. So,
Yeah.
yep. And the way you get into the communities seems to be kind of a vetting process. So, yeah, that was it. I was just curious with the larger groups tend to get the more varied people can come through. So it's just sometimes it can throw groups out of equilibrium. And I was just wondering if you'd hit any point like that before, and it doesn't seem like it. So
No,
it's all good.
it's like a small group gatherings in the neighborhoods, and it is like member based acceptance. Like you need to get a referral, or you answer your questions and attend a nook, and then can see how it goes, talk with the people who are there, and then you know if you are uh, kind of getting along with what we are trying to offer to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What I also wonder is the retention rate of these
Yeah,
members.
it's more than 88% actually. Means
Oh,
it's something. I think so. And that's why I have been onto this project, even though it doesn't seem so much in terms of the real world things that we have all around us, but we are still closely connected and a lot of things are happening over there. Yeah.
yeah. I think for a library, in terms of like retention rate, I would say like the number like tend to be like every time we have a call, it'll hit about like 23, 25. 25 is the max, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, but it's like, I guess an analogy is like we hit a new season. It's like it keeps. It's like a. I would say like a relatively like okay rate of like
Mm-hmm.
attendance in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like the same people,
Mm-hmm.
because like now we're, like once we move into the next season, we have the people who stay and
Mm-hmm.
the new people who come in and add thoughts. But the older people who have joined before, I'm pretty sure they'd happy to join again.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just like more about like who the conversation connects to, and
Yes.
and their stages of life within this space as well.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
So the
Yes.
past people that came in, like they are like super like OG people in the space, and now they've diverged into different like activities and stuff like that. So a lot of people coming in now are like, wait, I want to learn about the public goods. I want to talk about it. I want to think about it, right? And so these people just come in, and I'm gonna say these people, yeah, it's you guys. And so yeah, you guys come in, right? And but then like you guys are probably gonna find some other initiatives as well. Um, so this is something that like this is interesting to me, but like and also the referral networks. A lot of people that are in here right now are referred, and like I guess like about 3 or 4 people today is referred by Tua for coming here to like kind of like listening into the conversation, right? And then like and hopefully you guys like it enough to where you guys would return or like share more people because you guys like what's going on within like the call, and then it continues, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of that process of like referral is also really strong as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hey, Tanaya. Nice to see you. Hey, everyone. Um, yeah, I feel like what Twiz building with this project is such a powerful use case for how Web3 tooling can be
I
used.
have a little. I want to interrupt you, Lani. I am not building. You know who all. I am not building it. I am nobody without you. Means this I realized. Means earlier it was parents, space collaborators, and educators, and now it is the tech community. Means it is not me. It's not. It's not my
You're
project.
so you're so humble, my dear. You are the glue. It would not exist without you. Um, you're the glue that holds it together. But I feel like it's such a powerful use case for how Web3 tooling can be utilized to reclaim community spaces away from capitalism and back into community and build something that is self-sustaining rather than financially motivated. And I think like childcare, it's such a basic thing that like everyone that has children needs, and a lot of people can't afford. And so like building this kind of funding, self-sustaining mechanism that's also like an open source protocol that can be offered to anyone anywhere in their own local communities. For me, that's such a game changer. And yeah, I'm curious too, when you were doing your intro, you were saying that there were a few questions that are coming up as your community is building this project, that you wanted to pose to the group for feedback or like for brainstorming. I was curious, like if you could share what those questions are. I don't know if I heard you say it in the intro.
Uh, yes, so these questions are basically what I have. First of all, thank you, Lani. Means what you just mentioned right now is what we are trying to build. Means that says it all. That's how we want to emerge this project towards a direct. Means that's how we want to take the project to a direction where people from different part of the world can just create their own communities through this open sourcing and distributed. And the thing what what makes me think is like there are a lot of people who are putting their time, like it's total altruism, like even in the from the tech community. So I just wonder, like, what are those self-funding mechanisms that can come up for this kind of community? I know a lot of people like a so let me give some examples here. uh, so a space collaborator who was the first one to um, help us with her space. She offered her space to us when we started with the Nooks. We both were moms, and she just moved to LA a few months back. She is opening up a new branch in 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 LA, and she wants to help Nooks. So how means there are a lot of people from within the community who wants this to happen. Um, how what kind of help might we ask from them, and who means how, and it's not about me also, it's a community thing right now, like how do we connect her to the broader community, and she is interested in learning more. So all these questions, and people from London and are interested in doing Nooks. So how you make those Nooks open up to them, like it's it's been a slow process for us. We also don't want to go super fast, but all these things I would love to explore, like uh, what can be our next steps, like how do we take these steps as a community, because I know that a lot of people are putting their tons of time and effort into this project. Yeah.
This sounds a lot like marketing, right? Because you're trying to sell the idea. You're trying to get people to know about the right people to know about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Ben works in marketing. I wonder if you have any thoughts on that. Because I think a lot of it, every time we have like a discussion regarding how to know about this, it's always back to narrative. How do you sell that story? And a lot of salespeople, what they do, they have an actual template, the exact template that's already been written and passed out to everybody. This is like the effective template, and you just follow this order, like give them step by step, and they use that as a guide. Not, I wouldn't say like you do exactly step by step, but as a guide and adapt it to your personal preference of how to like do that, because that's how you innovate like new ways of like getting more client customer people to join participants. But
Means
yeah,
I have a few thoughts there. Means I don't think we are going in this marketing direction like how traditional marketing works. We don't need more clients. We already have a lot of clients, and we want to serve them properly. So the thing is, how do we develop these tools which serves this inner purpose of the parents and the greater community who are helping us build the system.
I,
So
I want to say add to that. So what I say when I say marketing, it's not necessarily like a commercial marketing. What I'm saying is like it adds to the trust factor. So, for example, if something is looking organized and well
mhm,
prepared, whatever material you put together to explain the
mhm,
concept, it just makes you believe that a lot of people have put time into this and have a lot of thought, a lot of like experience, background, right? So I don't think it's necessarily it's just like presentation. I feel
mhm,
it's really important. Like,
mhm,
so
Maybe
it's
the
not a commercial thing, but yeah.
maybe the word you're seeking for, Lynn, is storytelling over marketing.
Or
And
it might be a little, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, here's the sorry, just
no,
the
no,
one,
go.
because I feel like I was kind of pinged in as the marketing thing. I would think marketing is like finding your audience, and if your audience is already profuse and you have too many people and they're really into your vibe, like you don't need to make it look better.
yeah, yes, yes,
It's
that's
the
what
whole thing
we
about
do.
marketing is finding your audience, and if your
Yeah,
audience has found you, like sweet, cool,
yeah, 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 yeah.
I
cool,
would.
you.
That's it, Ben. Yeah, that says it all. Yes, that's how we are finding each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that, like, something too you and I have talked about before is creating some kind of an NFT marketplace into the idea of Nooks as a protocol, and then also
Mhm,
like establishing Nooks as an open source protocol. So creating like, you know, a working or a set of documents that has like a framework of like how it functions on a very granular level, so that anyone could like take that documentation and then work with it in their own communities and try to implement it, maybe with the help of some of like a core team of people that are working on the project. can be available to offer technical support as people are building out, within their own communities. But I think you could do some really interesting things, both with like art created by the children while they're participating in Nooks and minting that as NFTs, which is a really interesting NFT use case that I haven't really seen explored yet. But like, where parents are buying their kids NFTs essentially,
Yeah.
or maybe each
Yeah.
other's kids NFTs,
Mm-hmm.
as like a collectible and also as a membership or like a way of patronizing the program as a whole. And you could create something that also like distributes to all of the Nooks worldwide. So there's like basically like sort of like a global Nook drip. Like you could maybe explore using the drips protocol to drip funds that are collected through the Nooks protocol to all members, like redistribute a percentage of that to all members of the Nooks worldwide. So you could start to create and then like also like activate those treasuries using DeFi protocols and do something similar.
Mm-hmm.
So I think also like and activating the communities of artists locally where the Nooks are happening to like have them come and do youth art ed programs with the kids at the Nooks, and then like also invite those artists maybe to create special editions that are released through the Nooks ecosystem as collectible NFTs. Like there's a lot of ways that
Yeah.
you could play with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Lani. Yes. 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 These are all in. Yeah. I remember we having it. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
What are some of the other questions or challenges that have been coming up for you in the development and distribution process? I know that you mentioned that specifically.
It's so dynamic actually. I have been getting, as I mentioned earlier, that this opening up a template where parents can create their own nooks in their own way and having a line. So we are working on that, and I have been getting requests from parents where they want us to create, like, they are not in where I live, so there maybe one is in London, one is in Italy, so those people want to do nooks of their own. And so we have been thinking of, our educators are interested in starting a podcast for 20 minutes, like a mini podcast, where they can share our values and how people can listen and participate. And then the parents might be able to interact with them. This is one project which I'm trying to build. Then there is another publishing project which we are working, like it will like a newspaper weekly from the parents new community, from a collaborative project, like where all the parents, collaborators, and educators can come together and share their thoughts on parenting and mm, uh, whatever issues we are facing as parents. And then they can create their own DAOs, they can create their own groups, and they can give one-on-one support to the parents. This is also something we are working on. So there are so many small projects, Lani, which are coming up, and we are working on it. But yeah, so there are tons of things. Maybe I will reach out to you separately. Means, yeah, these are all the things which we are trying to get to at this moment.
Yeah, I would be happy to join with you on that. And I think like creating a cohesive documentation of your process and
Mm-hmm.
like helping I don't know, maybe like document specific like really like granular, like just how everything functions so that anyone could pick it up and yeah, try to experiment with it on its own, that it's like flexible enough and open enough, but
Mm-hmm.
that's clear so that you know
Okay.
someone could try it themselves.
Yeah, it's there. Maybe I will put it up in the GitHub and you all can
Yeah,
have a look. Yeah, yeah.
that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of like the test, right? Is like if you can send it to someone, if they can understand it and could like, even if it's just a hypothetical going through the process of starting their own Nook, but
Mm-hmm.
send several people through that process and just see what their feedback is, how clear it was, what
Mm-hmm.
needs refinement. I think that's probably a really beautiful step to take in this direction.
Okay, okay, okay. Yes, thank you. Thank you. And I also have this question that as we are venturing into this open source model, How do we create a system where self funding is being done to the people who are actively participating in the nooks with their time, energy, and as an altruistic factor? All of these factors, like, is a self funding model available? As we go in all those open source research documents, it's been written that when we have a modular granular structure, maybe self funding is particular module becomes easier. So how do we explore that? What are the options we have? And is it just that we are imagining, or is it really a possibility? So this is something which I've been lingering in my mind for long, and I'm wondering about it. Yeah.
Sorry, is that self-funding? Like funding yourself?
No, self-funding means how does funding come there in that small group to sustain the people who are putting their time in? How that might look like in community which is creating a different economic model.
Well, I think you might like explore like an initial NFT release as a fundraising endeavor to like launch the project for like internal funding and like to create an initial treasury. And then like down the road, you could think about tokenizing, if that makes sense, which might actually play really well into some of the other things we were just touching on, about like redistributing funds to the global Nooks network. Um, but yeah, you know, you might talk to Gary from DreamDAO about how he initiated that project, because it's sort of like a parallel or like, you know, similar mission or intention. And he released like an NFT PFP project to fundraise for DreamDAO initially. So like I've definitely seen that done successfully. And then also, you know, to it, like there's a lot of grants in the ecosystem. Like there's a lot of protocols that are offering grants, especially if you want to try to experiment with their protocols or with their tooling. So yeah, that's that. I would say that like those two avenues are both like fairly easy, relatively speaking, and definitely like available.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm curious to what everyone else thinks. Also,
I'm
just
seeing.
like, oh, go ahead, Lynn.
Oh no. I was just gonna say that I saw that Joel also shared some thoughts and wanted to see if they wanted to speak up on it like more like through our conversation. But yeah. What are you gonna say, Lonnie?
I was just gonna say
I can
once
say
you.
some thoughts.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm just like I'm Joel. I've actually been talking with Tanaya a bit in Kernel, and I've also been wrestling with these ideas about how to build Web3 protocols for local. And I think one of the things that's been coming out in this discussion is just the interesting differences between the design space for local as opposed to designing uh, like the design space that's going to reinvent the global financial system. Like I think that there's many different scales that Web3 technologies can impact, and the differences between local and the global are really evident as you kind of like talk about like these nooks. And I like one of the aspects that was coming up earlier in the conversation was around governments and like what happens when disputes arise. And I think that's kind of like interesting how the like that since the coordination sort of pre-exists the desire to have an organization, you sort of like don't need to handle things in quite the same way. And so I'm sort of thinking about like NFT sales or funding, this sort of like a radical notion of self funding that's getting brought out here. Like because you have a group of people that's already willing to put effort into sort of self-sustaining their like human values, I feel like an if you're proposing an on-chain mechanism like NFT sales that then requires the participants to like add money into this coordination that they're going to be doing, it's going to fall apart. Like I'm trying to design local blockchain
Mhm.
coordination
Mhm.
tools for like my local family
Mhm.
in my home, and it's like it's really interesting because it's like if I tried to market it as a type of
Mhm.
money, I think I
Mhm.
would just totally disintegrate the values that I'm trying to instill in it.
Yes.
So I
Mhm.
just like want to be
Mhm.
really sensitive here to like not just try to channel like a locally focused initiative into a model that's like really meant for global transacting. Like
Mhm.
Ethereum mainnet
Mhm.
is a global network, and I'm not quite sure that that
Mhm.
fits like like
Mhm.
the local case. And really, what I spend my days searching for
Mhm.
answers is like
Mhm.
how can we build out local blockchain networks? Like if the technology is good for coordination, then it's going to be good at the scale of local too. So
Yes.
like how do you build local blockchain networks that can scale and be self-hosted by their communities?
Yes.
But anyways, sorry to rant. Sorry I'm
Thank
so
you, Joel.
impassioned. I'm really nervous to speak to this group because I feel like yeah, maybe a little bit
Thank,
of a blockchain edge lord over here. But yeah, Tanaya, thanks for sharing. And
thank
yeah, I really love your next project.
thank you, Joel. I love what you just mentioned, and I just agree with what you said. But yeah, let's keep exploring more how that might happen. But yes, it's an
I,
interesting path. Thank
I
you.
actually think that local there's like a higher, like there's not really many good examples to point to, but just like an intuitive gut feeling. I think that local will be a much better application of DAOs and like these new
Yeah,
coordinations than like global
yeah,
scale. So like
yeah,
instead of
yeah,
having, let's buy an NBA team or let's buy a golf
yeah,
course, what
yeah,
if there was something that was much more
yeah,
easier to do, like fill in a pothole. And it's like we get everyone that lives around this area to be like, you know what? It is worth $5 extra to like have all of us chip in $5 and have this impact of not having a pothole. And like I think that like there's not really enough to point to of like, oh yeah,
mm-hmm.
effects and like actually seeing money make like there's you can point to those things, but there aren't like small meaningful DAOs. I think that
Mm-hmm.
it's like people just want to see people want to embody the change that they want to see in the world. And so if you give them meaningful ways to like make their streets easier to drive on or like
Mm-hmm.
giving them meaningful like ways to contribute to change in their local ecosystems, like that's it.
Yeah,
That's what we're
that's
trying to do. So
that's yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
we're there yet,
That's
but that's what I
interesting.
really think that it'll be really good for.
Big plus one, Ben, and one, Joel. Thank you for sharing. When I first started coming to these things, I was so terrified to speak. I remember like a year ago, I would be in like Discord common rooms and like Clubhouse chats, like sweating alone in my house, trying to like get up the nerve to like say a sentence. It does get easier with practice. So thank you so much for your beautiful heart and sharing. The way that I like to think about cryptocurrencies is non-local local currencies. So, like, while Ethereum is a global network, there are an infinite number of sub currencies that can be built on top of Ethereum and many other things too. But, like, there's a few really beautiful projects that I will point everyone to. One that I love so much is called Collectivo, which is comes out of Prime DAO, and basically Prime DAO has funded both a local currency in Curacao and also a regenerative food forest project. So, like we're at this really beautiful moment where we have this like new money basically that we can direct it, and it's programmable money that we can direct it to do whatever we want. And we are, like, Joel, what you're saying is so important. We're at this moment where like a lot of people, I mean, we're still in a huge barrier to entry point, right? Where like there's a technological barrier to entry, there's an informational, educational barrier to entry, and a lot of people are not yet onboarded into Web3. But I think what's really exciting about a project like this is that this can be a beautiful bridge that can you know, I don't see like what I was proposing for an NFT project. I wouldn't necessarily say that it would have to come. I guess if the parents were buying the NFTs, that would be asking them for money, but rather that could be and you know, like I think like this is sort of a delicate thing, but like at this point, because there's not everyone is onboarded yet, that the bootstrapping of these projects that are fundraising through NFTs is partially coming from OG Web3 folks, you know, that are like, I believe in this experiment and I'm going to support and invest in it because I have the resources to do so. So like actually the real fundraising would look like probably a combination of the community itself and then also going to the broader Web3 community to invest in this project. But I think that like creating experiments for funding local currencies, like also another beautiful project to check out is Giveth. They're funding a lot of local currency, local like IRL cryptocurrency projects like what we're describing and trying to help communities bootstrap exactly, Ben, what you're describing, like, you know, deciding how we share, how we collectively implement our resources to do good in our actual physical communities. And there's a lot of people that are experimenting with this, but yeah, we're like at a really challenging moment in a lot of ways where like how do you educate and onboard new folks into the space and also experiment with these tools in order to fundraise for the things that we really care about, but you know, we're all in the experiment together and we can embed our values and what we care about and what we're building here and you know, just try things and see what works.
One thing that I just want to add, because we were talking about barriers to entry, and I feel like I just typed this in the chat, but it was kind of a fire line, so whatever. I'm gonna double click on it. But disposable income is a barrier to entry into the space inherently because you need to have money to invest, or like disposable income is kind of you can only lose as much money that you put in, but you have to put money into this economic system. And so that's a barrier to entry in terms of like people don't have disposable income.
Yeah.
People,
Yeah.
like that's not a lot to ask for people. And so like
Yes.
how do we move from disposable income to composable income, where that's an incentive to entry, where it's like you can deal in these local currencies and make money for valuing this, like embodying the changes that you want to believe and like having active governance, like all of these things. How can we make that as an incentive and not a barrier by like providing economic means for participation? Like I think there's kind of an interesting inversion that potentially we're at the precipice of but just thoughts, because I
Yeah.
don't have
Yeah.
good examples to be like this fucking local credit union made it so that nobody had interest on their credit card or whatever. I don't know. Whatever
Yeah.
example would be a thing. So
Yeah. Thank you, Ben. Yes. Yes.
also thank you, Joel, for speaking as well. I appreciate it. I forgot to say thanks. No, thank you.
Definitely want to say thanks to Joel for speaking up. If anybody would like to like have any thoughts, would love to hear it. Can I like deep dive on it more? We have like maybe like about 3 or 4 minutes. Kind of like a last like maybe like final insight you guys got from this conversation. It'd be awesome to hear and your experience like attending this call. I also want to note, we are going to start having a more intimate reading session soon in the future, hosted by Henry. Essentially, we'll actually have chapters or like an article to read, and we'll have like silent reading time together, and we'll make annotations and thoughts, and hopefully that'll be featured somewhere. I don't know. It could be a cool initiative, but I wanted to make it as much of a community-driven effort as possible. Love to hear everybody's thought here. But like so it will be like 10 times that. This is a more verbal, where the other one is gonna be like actually writing and thinking and deep diving into specific sentences and whatnot. So that's gonna be exciting. Other than that, yeah, we have a few more minutes if anybody wants to.
That sounds great, Lynn. Tua, I'm wondering, like, do you have any specific calls to action for this group or like requests for feedback or anything that you would like from us moving
Uh,
forward?
yes, request for feedback is something, but I don't think I have any call to action because we are working together, like with a few thoughtful people who are continuously giving me feedback, working with me, and putting their time and effort. So, means it's means I think feedback would be a great thing, and we don't have any call to action because I think we are already putting things together, and I would love to invite a few of you who might be interested uh, to the Discord server which we created. It's still in the very initial stage, but it's there. So maybe at certain point of time, we are not in a hurry. Basically, we are doing it. Yeah. Thank you, Lani.
Do you
I
have a
guess I do
link?
have a final call to action. Final call to action is if you guys feel passionate about a topic, just kind of like Tanya is talking about today, right? Please feel free to talk to me about like
Okay.
hosting a session. So would love to have you guys. And we have this call every single Wednesday. So if you're new here and you want to join and you like the space, we'll have these kind of discussion every week. Through like community member, like hosting a conversation they're interested in deep diving into more. But yeah, thank you everybody for attending today's call.
Thank you, everyone, for your presence.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for hosting this
Thank
space,
you.
Lonnie
Thank you,
and
Tua.
Thanks to